Hi guys, in today's video I'm going to talk about the copper conspiracy. It's a topic I've been so passionate about for quite a while now, and I've been promising to you for forever, so I think today is the time when I finally sit down and explain everything to you. So in the past, like a lot of us, I believed in the copper toxicity theory, and I tried to get rid of my copper toxicity by taking lots of zinc, and I took big doses of zinc for a year, but I never felt better, and I actually started getting worse and worse symptoms of really dry and weird skin, and the worst thing was actually really weird pains in my lower back, and I just couldn't get why. And then I realized that it was all caused by a copper deficiency that I actually caused myself by taking a lot of zinc. So that's how my whole research into copper really started up. And when I started looking into it, I actually realized that yes, there is one side that talks about copper toxicity, but there's also the other side that talks about the importance of copper and how most of us are actually copper deficient rather than copper toxic. So that really opened my eyes, and I really think that it's really important to share this information with you today in this video. Not long ago I actually made a video where I talked about how I optimize my zinc levels without taking any zinc. And all I took was copper, and copper normalized my zinc levels all by itself, which is totally amazing. If you haven't watched it yet, I'll link it somewhere here for you. I think it's totally mind-blowing. So this whole copper toxicity theory became really fashionable when a few years ago a study came out that linked copper levels to Alzheimer's disease, and everybody completely freaked out, and all the doctors, all the gurus and nutritionists and everybody started saying that people should limit their copper in their food and also in the supplements, to the point where a lot of major supplement companies actually took out copper from their multivitamin formulas. So not only people were not getting enough copper from the food, but now they were also not getting it from the supplements, which is just tragic. However, the media failed to mention that around the same time another report came out by the US Food and Nutrition Board that basically said that only 25% of people in the US are getting enough copper from the diet. The other 75% were actually copper deficient, which is totally different from what the media was trying to portray. And I guess that very similar numbers would be found in a lot of other Western countries because the diets are so similar nowadays. The thing is, we don't really eat so many foods that are high in copper, like liver foods, like organ foods, especially liver, like shellfish and legumes. These used to be staple in our diet, you know, in our grandparents and great-grandparents' diet, but it's not really a staple in our diet anymore. So let's talk about all the reasons why copper is actually so vital and so important for our body. So first of all, copper is very highly involved in the production of ATP. ATP is basically like the cellular energy for our cells. Just like magnesium, copper and magnesium are like the two important building blocks of ATP. And without ATP, we have no energy for anything, but also our cells don't have the energy for most of the functions of the body. Copper also has a huge antioxidant power. It actually protects your body from free radical damage, and it also protects your cells from damage. So at the same time, because of that, it also protects you from cancer and lots of other inflammatory diseases, protects you from all kinds of fungal diseases, and especially candida. So if you have candida and you've tried all kinds of herbs and dietary changes and you still can't get rid of it, definitely look into your levels of copper, because copper is the thing that actually gets rid of candida. I mean, it's impossible to get rid of candida, but it basically controls the levels. Everybody has it to a certain extent. Copper is also involved in the synthesis of melanin and serotonin. So serotonin, you probably already know, is the happiness hormone, and melanin is what the body uses to create the color in your skin and in your hair. So if you are low in copper, you probably will struggle to get tanned. You will get just burned instead. And also you might start getting random white spots and like lack of pigment on your skin. And also you will start losing color in your hair, and you will start getting gray hair. And in fact, I've read of so many cases where people would totally reverse their graying hair just by taking some extra copper. And probably one of the most important reasons is that copper is what actually helps our body use iron. So it grabs iron from the blood and transports it to the bone marrow, where it can produce more red blood cells. If you don't have enough copper, what's going to happen is that extra iron, unused iron, is going to be deposited in a lot of different organs like your heart and your liver and a lot of different places, and that's going to cause you a lot of problems in the future. Not only you'll probably be anemic with low iron and low ferritin, but you'll also be going through massive iron toxicity. So if you have low ferritin, low iron, or anemia, definitely look into your copper levels, because you will never be able to raise your iron without enough copper. I personally had really low ferritin, and now it's perfect, all just because of taking extra copper. Not never, but lately I haven't taken any kind of iron, and it all went up by itself just because of adding some extra copper, so that I could actually take all that deposited iron from my organs and put it where it belongs, basically in the bone marrow. Also, copper deficiency can actually mimic the symptoms of vitamin B12 deficiency, so all kinds of weird neurological issues. That could easily be copper. And in fact, there are so many people, including my own dad, who think that they have low vitamin B12. And in fact, my dad also has low vitamin B12. But no matter how much of B12 they're getting from supplements or from injections, they still keep having those weird neurological symptoms, and they can't understand why. And in many cases, it could actually be low copper, because the symptoms of low copper and B12 are actually exactly the same. So the daily requirement from food in the past, maybe around 50 to 70 years ago, used to be 3 milligrams a day, which is really not that easy to get if you are not eating liver and organ meats and legumes and things like that. It's really not that easy, trust me. I have been monitoring my levels for quite a while. The funny thing is that right now, currently, the daily requirement in the US is only 1 milligram, which is ridiculous. It's totally not enough for healthy functioning of the body. Also, so many people are taking zinc supplements every single day, and also ascorbic acid, which is synthetic vitamin C. Both of these actually inhibit the absorption of copper in your guts. So if you're taking zinc, definitely make sure that you balance it with copper, just not at the same time. Maybe zinc in the morning, copper in the evening, and things like that, because they actually do inhibit each other's absorption, so be careful with that. And for vitamin C, it's always best to get food-based vitamin C, get vitamin C from food, or at least not take it at the same time as copper. And one final thing I really wanted to mention about absorption is fructose malabsorption. People with fructose malabsorption have a lot of excess fructose circulating in their guts, which actually has been proven by the scientists to really inhibit the absorption of copper. So anybody with fructose issues, or any kind of gut issues really, would probably be quite low in copper, so it's definitely something worth looking into. So how did all this copper toxicity theory came out? Well, that's because when people are sick, or when they are undergoing huge physical or mental stress, the levels in copper are actually increased. And that's because the body uses copper in order to fight that stress, whether mental or physical. Copper is like antioxidant, and it's highly healing for the body. So it's kind of funny how the scientists totally don't understand the difference between simple correlation and then cause and effect. So they check people with serious diseases, and they find copper levels in their blood high, and they think, it must be copper causing the issue. It's very similar to this whole cholesterol issue. For so many decades, scientists believed that cholesterol was actually causing heart disease. Well, actually, it was just correlation. Cholesterol was actually repairing the diseased blood vessels, and that's why the levels of cholesterol were high in people with heart disease. It didn't actually mean that cholesterol was causing those issues. So I suspect that it's exactly the same thing with copper, and maybe in 10 years time we will look back and we'll see that copper was just another cholesterol. There possibly is one kind of copper that could be toxic, and that's the unbound or metallic copper. So you would get it from copper pipes, from copper coil used for birth control, or from food cooked in copper dishes. But at the same time, yes, the scientists now think that it might be toxic, but then if you look back, Ayurveda has been promoting the use of copper vessels for water storage for thousands of years, because they believe that copper infused water is like the most healing water in the world. And then another example is arthritis being successfully cured by copper bracelets. So even our grandmothers have been using copper bracelets for hundreds of years, maybe even thousands of years. My husband's grandmother had one of those, and they are so successfully treating arthritis. And even to this day, if you go to Amazon and look for copper arthritis bracelet, you'll find tons of them being sold because they seriously work. So if metallic copper was actually so bad for us, how could this be explained? How could copper be so promoted by Ayurveda? And also, how could it be so healing for people with arthritis? So it's definitely food for thought. There is no answer for that, but I guess we will find out once the science knows a little bit better. So copper is really so important for so many different reasons. And for example, people with acne or any kind of other skin issues could definitely be low in copper. People with gray hair or hair that's losing color, people with weird white spots on their skin, people with lots of wrinkles, people with any kind of connective tissue diseases, arthritis, fungal diseases, candida, all these people are very good candidates for low copper, and they should definitely look into that. Also, varicose veins, for example, is also very closely linked to copper, because copper is used to produce collagen, which is what's very important for healthy skin and joints and connective tissue, and also veins, because veins need to be very supple and very elastic. But if you don't have enough copper, they won't be elastic, and that's how you get varicose veins. I really hope that this gave you food for thought, and you can definitely find so much information about copper if you really look for anything else but copper toxicity. So if you look for copper toxicity, you'll find lots of arguments for copper toxicity. But if you look for the other side, for the copper benefits for your health, you'll be amazed by what you can find out there. So I really hope that you enjoyed this video, that you found it interesting and helpful. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye.